Immersed Robot.
Hello everyone, welcome to Immersed Robot again, and in this video I wanted to cover Half-Life Alyx once again. I wanted to see how it performs on an RTX 3080. Now I have already done a performance test on this game, but back then, it was a few months ago now, back then I was capturing footage on the same PC as I was playing the game on, and we all know, these things, they can use resources to capture that footage, and it can sometimes affect the performance, affect the results that we get on these performance tests. So I wanted to redo this one. I'm not sure if it made too much of a difference because different games behave differently if you're recording footage and playing them at the same time. Some will be affected, others won't. So I'm not sure if Half-Life Alyx really had much of an impact by recording at the same time, but I wanted to get into it and just take this out because I am using a capture card on a separate PC now, so it should be a little bit more accurate either way. So we can get straight into it, I suppose. So I started out with a baseline of using SteamVR supersampling at 100%. Now in this game it doesn't really take into account SteamVR supersampling. It uses its own pipeline, its own rendering pipeline overrides that by using sort of dynamic resolution scaling depending on how the PC is performing really. We are running at 90 Hertz in the headset, and as you can see, generally things are running perfectly fine here. There are occasional dips. You can see on the CPU side that there are a few dips here and there, and also the GPU has occasional hitches here and there as well. It seems to be when it's loading in assets for the new areas that you're going into or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but you can tell that when you load in a new area, you can see that the hitches seem to occur at those general points really. But once things have loaded in any particular area, then you can see that it runs pretty flawlessly at 90 frames per second. There are still very occasional dips, but not really very many, not enough to worry about. So just going into the graphical settings here, I did start on low fidelity, but you'll see that when I ramp it up to ultra fidelity here, I'm going from low straight up to ultra fidelity and then back into the game. You'll see that frame rate isn't affected too much, and that is probably thanks to this dynamic resolution scaling which the game does on the fly. So it will adjust resolution depending on how well your PC is coping with the graphical fidelity at any one moment. So just to clarify as well, the game was looking absolutely fantastic here on both really low settings and ultra settings. Both looked fantastic. I guess I'm not too sure of the differences between each graphical setting in game. I don't know if it's lighting, shadows, things that are affected. I'm not too sure. You can dive into that a little bit more within the menu, but I wanted to stick to the presets here just for this test. So you can see that as I was climbing onto the top of the train there, it seemed to be as it was loading some of the new assets in or drawing some of the new area. I'm not entirely sure. It looked like there was a hitch there, and you can expect those from time to time when playing in VR, but it's not a major thing in all honesty. So I did try to change the refresh rate of the Valve Index and test the game at a higher refresh rate. Unfortunately, it wouldn't let me do that on the fly anymore. You do have to exit out of the game and go back in. I don't remember it being this way last time I tested the game, but it's certainly that way now. So I did exit out and went back in just to see how it was running on 120 Hertz at these ultra fidelity settings. So as you can see at 120 Hertz, the frame timings are not drastically different. Again, presumably this is down to the dynamic resolution scaling the game employs. And you can see that it's maintaining those 120 Hertz pretty solidly for the most part. Again, very small drops here and there, and you'll notice the same thing as we did on 90, small hitches in places as it seems to load in new assets for the game to use. So I did go in and change the graphical fidelity back down to low while running at this 120 Hz. I did want to test this just to see the effect of how it performed on the game, and you can see really the frame timings are slightly better than they were previously. The GPU utilization is still in the sort of 70 to 80% range, and there are occasional hitches here and there, again very minor ones again that we're used to. You can see that there are certain spikes here and there as well on the CPU side of things. I should point out as well that I am using the latest NVIDIA drivers in this test as well. So generally sporadic drops here and there running at these settings, but overall it's still running pretty well. So I changed back up to the Ultra Fidelity Graphical preset, and again, same as before, the frame timings are pretty similar really, slightly lower GPU utilization on this setting, but overall, you can go through all of these settings really, and the game just adjusts itself to keep a relatively solid level of performance. That does change later on when we get onto the 144Hz refresh rate though. So jumping out and back into the game, you can see now running at 144Hz in the Valve Index. It's still generally maintaining it, but you see plenty more drops now as you look around the scenery. So it can't quite adjust itself to the level which can accommodate 144 frames per second solid. It just can't quite manage that, unfortunately. Even when going back into the menu and lowering things right down to that low fidelity graphical preset, it still can't quite maintain a solid 144Hz, although it does do a little bit better really. It's just a little bit beyond the capabilities at the moment, unfortunately. So just as a final test really out of interest, I went in and ramped SteamVR super sampling all the way up to 200%, and it shouldn't make any difference because, as I've mentioned numerous times in this test, the game does dynamically adapt itself, its own super sampling within the game. But it did seem to make some kind of a difference because these sections which I played through just a few minutes ago, they weren't reprojecting to 72 frames per second as is now. So I'm not too sure exactly what's going on there. That might require a little bit more research to find out exactly what's going on with the game here. But generally, what I tend to do is still run the game at 100 to 150% SteamVR super sampling, just because 150 is my standard setting for most other games, and then I let it just adjust itself really. But it does seem to make some kind of a difference when you do change the super sampling within SteamVR as well. So I'll look into that a little bit more. But that's pretty much it for this test anyway, so I just wanted to make a little addition to my previous video on Half-Life Alyx, just to let you know, a little bit more accurately how it performs with an RTX 3080. My full system specs are in the description to this video as well if you want to check those out, because obviously all the different moving parts will be relevant to how this game performs overall. But thank you for watching this video, and please do subscribe if you get a moment to this channel for more performance tests like this. And I'll see you next time.
Please hesitantly tap the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more concise and informative VR content. You can also join our Discord by clicking on the link in the description of this video. And, as always, I'll catch you on the flippity flip.